Is anybody really shocked that Leticia James turns out to be the worst person that Donald Trump could prosecute? He literally creates his own destroyers. I feel like I'm watching a bad Marvel movie. He's creating the person that's going to take him down. I couldn't tell who was the prosecutor and who was the defendant. That's how powerful Leticia James was in the courtroom herself. She spoke. Lindsay Halligan didn't. 2 major motions got filed. They're going after Lindsay Halligan. They want her off this case. They want her off all cases. And I think they got the goods to do it. We batted around the only way we know how on Legal AF, the podcast. And here's a clip.
Well, let's get into it. New York Attorney General Leticia James, she pled not guilty in the Eastern District of Virginia, where she's being prosecuted for like mortgage fraud. We already have a ton of information as well, where it seems that she disclosed the only payment that she received from her second home, like $1,300 or so from her niece, and that there's no other payments. It seems like the indictment and what's listed in the indictment is a sham. When Lindsay Halligan, Trump's personal attorney, who went into the grand jury room alone when she became probably the unlawfully appointed federal prosecutor, and there's a motion on that as well, which Popok, you'll talk about. It seems that she gave the grand jury false information, both in the Comey case and in the James case. Just the defense attorneys aren't in the grand jury room. The judge isn't in the grand jury room. It seems the grand jury was just given fake facts, false facts. And New York Attorney General Tish James has filed powerful motions over and over again. Here she is right here. This was the press conference. Let's play it.
Up for the rights of New Yorkers and Americans, and I will not be deterred.
That's a lie.
And I will not be deterred. I will not be distracted. I will do my job each and every day, and that's why I'm headed back to New York, because there's work to be done. Standing up for the rule of law. God bless you and thank you all, and I appreciate you.
Popok, break down the latest developments with New York Attorney General Leticia James' not guilty plea, the consolidation of her motion with Comey's to disqualify Lindsay Halligan, thus dismissing the case, the vindictive prosecution motion, which is now going to be heard in a few months, that she's going to file, the motion regarding the illegal leaks by Lindsay Halligan, who's been talking about the grand jury with Ann Bauer. You did that incredible interview. Talk to us.
Yeah, first let me shout out and I've always been impressed by Tish James. Donald Trump has picked the fight with the wrong person. If he thought I'm going to get my pound of flesh to pay back Tish James in her office because they were involved with a finding that still stands of fraud against Donald Trump and his family and the operation of the Trump organization. She's been involved with over 50 attorneys general suits now, 100 in the first term against Donald Trump's depraved policies, and it is on a winning streak of 90%. She worked hand in glove with the Manhattan District Attorney's Office on 2 separate felony indictments and convictions of Donald Trump or his companies. If he thought that he was going to extract some sort of pound of flesh from her by having her trumped up, have these trumped up charges on mortgage fraud, he picked the wrong person. She is strong. She is courageous. She's a person of conviction. She is an ethical person, and she is a powerful person that we are not going to hear the last of. And if Donald Trump being embarrassed, apparently, by Barack Obama during a White House dinner triggered him to run for office, there is a higher calling for Leticia James that we're going to see coming out of this. He has made his own destroyer, I believe, in Leticia James, by the way, that he's had the Department of Justice vindictively prosecute her. And as we expected, not only did she show up in Norfolk, Virginia in person for her arraignment and said aloud herself, not even her lawyer sitting next to her, who we know the lawyer, she said out loud, not guilty on both counts, Your Honor. Now, sitting in the room, talk about a mismatch. You've got the attorney general basically blowing the prosecutors out of the water in the room, outmatching them, outwitting them, outsmarting them in every way. Lindsay Halligan the would-be prosecutor who's soon to be losing her job if these motions are successful. She wasn't, and you'll appreciate this, Ben, in our world of trial practice, the person who occupies the first chair at counsel table is the lead trial lawyer. We say they're in the first chair, literally. The second chair is usually either a co-counsel or a senior or junior partner or somebody working on the case, does other aspects of the case. Third chair, I don't know, sometimes that's a paralegal, sometimes that's somebody else. So Lindsay Halligan sat in the third chair, didn't say a word, imported somebody from Missouri, a carpetbagging prosecutor, obviously got the short straw to come in and make the case because no one in her own office in the Eastern District of Virginia would touch this case with a 10-foot pole. They fired the prosecutor who was the head of the major crimes unit in Norfolk, Virginia. They fired her and now have come up with some phony. She emailed herself a report. Yeah, she emailed herself as a CYA, if this is true. Beth Usey. She sent herself the recommendation to Lindsay Halligan not to prosecute the Leticia James case, which Lindsay Halligan's office now says, I never got that. You know who's going to get that? Leticia James, as part of what has to be turned over to her for her ultimate case, if it even gets that far. So you've got all of that going on. And right on cue, as she's in the office, she files, or in the courtroom before Judge Walker, Leticia James's office or legal team files 2 motions. One we expected, illegal appointment of Lindsay Halligan. The indictment should not only be dismissed because Lindsay Halligan is not appropriately appointed or to be the U.S. attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia, but I love this twist. Even Comey's lawyers didn't do this one. They're asking to have her enjoined from prosecuting anyone or anything, even if the indictment stands. That Lindsay Halligan particularly gets bounced from her job. And they're right on this analysis under 28 U.S.C. Section 546, which is a statute, the Vacancy Reform Act, which says that you get, as the Attorney General, 1 shot. You get 1 ticket to the amusement park. And once you punch that ticket, you can't go back into Disneyland. So she punched her ticket after the original U.S. attorney in the Eastern District resigned on Inauguration Day. They appointed Eric Siebert. Siebert is a Republican, conservative. Donald Trump nominated him, had him up ready to go for a Senate confirmation. Would have solved the whole Eastern District of Virginia prosecutor problem. The judges of the circuit of the district extended his time. Everything's going fine, except Siebert took one look at the Comey indictment material and the one for Leticia James and said, I'm not indicting these people. Fired. You're Rhino. You're this. You're that. Fired. We need Lindsay Halligan in there. The 8-year auto accident lawyer in Florida, who's never been in federal court, I'm sure, let alone a federal prosecutor. She's going to do it. So that whole single use, once Pam Bondi put Eric Siebert in, she was done. The next pick for that office comes from the district judges of the Eastern District of Virginia, pursuant to that statute, until Donald Trump can successfully get a permanent appointment confirmed at the Senate. That is the case. That's the Comey argument. That's the Leticia James's argument. 2 different judges. Actually, it will be a judge. It will not be Judge Nachmanoff, the judge for Comey. It will not be Judge Walker, the judge for Leticia James on that particular motion, because there's a conflict. Because if they're right, then the person the entity that picks the replacement for Lindsay Halligan are the judges, including Walker and Nachmanoff. So this is likely, as they've given notice to the 2 separate judges, is likely to be sent to Judge Diaz, who's the chief judge of the 4th Circuit Court of Appeals that sits over Eastern District of Virginia, to send it, both consolidated, I assume, send it to another judge who's not in the Eastern District, meaning another Virginia Federal District Court judge or one in North Carolina or in someplace in the 4th Circuit. Similar to what happened with Alina Habba when the New Jersey motion got filed, all those judges had voted against her already. It got sent to the Middle District of Pennsylvania. So that's got to happen soon. And that's got to move soon, because you think Comey's got a fast trial date on Jan 6 or Jan 5 of this year? Hers is even shorter, even faster. Jan 26th is the trial date, which is advantage defense. Exactly. Now, in the meantime, she files another motion. This is my favorite motion for many reasons. This one is to gag Lindsay Halligan and everyone in the government, and I would argue that includes Donald Trump, from undermining Leticia James's ability to get a fair trial by making public comment about witnesses and evidence and the case. And the entire central premise, foundation of the motion, is Lindsay Halligan sending signal messages after Leticia James was indicted to a reporter, Anna Bauer, who's been on with me. I'll show a clip in a second. Where out of the blue in the beginning of October, she gets a signal message, the reporter, that says, "Hi, Anna, it's Lindsay." And off we go with a dozen or more messages in which she craps all over the evidence, or craps over Leticia James. She comments on the evidence. I'm talking about Lindsay Halligan. She comments about the grand jury violating its secrecy protection, and all the things you're not allowed to do. So they said, look, Judge, look at the article. Look at Anna Bauer's reporting. Look at the text messages. She violated her rules of ethics. She violated federal rule of criminal procedure 6E. She needs to be gagged. In fact, let's play now. The day after the article came out, we were lucky enough to get Anna Bauer to come on Legal AF and do an interview with me. Let's play a clip.
Becomes the top prosecutor there, and then one day, out of the blue, I get a message from her, or someone purporting to be her, which I didn't believe at first. I thought it was a troll, and it turns out it really was her, because she was able to tell me where we first met, who she was with, and then we confirmed that it was her by obtaining her phone number, which connected to the discussion, and the Justice Department eventually confirmed it.
So to be clear, when you woke up that day to her text message, you're not planning to write an article about Lindsay Halligan particularly, and some of her prosecutorial work on Leticia James. So when she later says, "I didn't know there was a story," there wasn't a story. The story is her communicating with you, right?
Right. And I want to be very clear here, Michael, because there's a lot of context here about how relationships between reporters and prosecutors work. So a few things that people who maybe aren't familiar with that context, and just how unusual this is and why this is even a story, I think it's important to keep these things in mind. So one is that it is normal for prosecutors and journalists to speak to each other. It's the kind of thing that's how reporting happens, so that's not strange, but there are a few things that are really abnormal here. One is that it's the sitting United States attorney, who's one of the most high profile prosecutors in the country, who's already under immense scrutiny because of the circumstances in which she was put into this job and the cases that she is pursuing against Leticia James and James Comey. The other is that she is reaching out to me, who, it seemed that she was reaching out to me about these tweets I wrote that was summarizing someone else's reporting. At no point did she say that we were off the record. And for people who don't know what that means, everyone who is a public figure knows very well that when you engage with the media, you can set at the beginning the basis on which you wish to speak. One way that you can do it is say, "Hey, I'd like to go off the record." And there has to be an agreement with the reporter that is the basis on which you speak. And then they can't publish anything, that you speak about in that off the record conversation. But if there's no agreement at the outset, the assumption is that you are speaking on the record, and that everything that you say is fair game.
And no backseat.
And there's no takesy-backsies. It doesn't work where you can retrospectively, as a source, say to a reporter, oh, hey, by the way, that was off the record.
Okay, that is the heart of it. And that is now evidence to support their motion to gag everybody. And then, of course, as you predicted, they're going to do a motion for vindictive prosecution, which will parallel and line up with Comey's motion. It's easy. You just use every word that came out of Donald Trump's mouth, or Ed Martin's mouth, or Pam Bondi, or Kash Patel, to show that, and Halligan, of course, in her selection. That's going to get filed very, very soon. That motion will stay with Judge Walker, as it will stay with the judge in the Comey case.
Now, Popak, Lindsay Halligan is likely going to have to take the stand at some point. She's going to be cross-examined about everything that took place in regarding a potential vindictive prosecution. She's not ready for prime time now. I mean, we know from what people have described her appearance is like in the court, very nervous. She bobs side to side the entire time, sweating, like literally scared to be there. And you know, you should have thought about that when you went into the grand jury room alone to try to take down the former FBI director and a top lawyer in James Comey, and the top lawyer in New York Attorney General Leticia James. And Comey and James are not messing around. I mean, I am very interested in that hearing that's going to be taking place in a few weeks on Halligan's disqualification. You know, and part of me, as though I want these cases to be dismissed because they're frivolous, part of me wants it to go on a little bit longer to see the vindictive prosecution motions play out, so we could have Halligan take the stand and all of that discovery can come out. I'd like to know about Donald Trump's direct messages to Halligan and to Bondi using the Truth Social app. I'd like to see a situation, and you could imagine this is coming, where Donald Trump becomes a witness in these cases in the vindictive prosecution claims, the defenses, and it will get to an area which we will be discussing soon, where Todd Blanche, for example, in the vindictive prosecution defense being asserted by Abrego Garcia, you know, someone like Todd Blanche, the deputy attorney general, is saying, executive privilege, I don't want to testify, I don't need to be there. And the response from Abrego is great. Then dismiss the criminal case. If you're too scared to take the stand after engaging in all this conduct, okay, and you want to assert all of these privileges, then you're prejudicing my defense, and then the case gets dismissed. So I would like to see the scenario develop where Trump has to show up, or people in the office have to show up, and after the tough game, they talk, right, on Fox and all of their preferred media outlets. This is what we saw before, right? Before the election, they talked tough, they'd go on Fox. Then when it came to testifying, they were scared. And I think we're going to see that paradigm play out again over with these prosecutions. And, you know, and because Trump's character is Trump's character, which is very low, vile, grotesque, scared when it comes down to it. And we see this play out over and over again.
Welcome back. We sit at the intersection of law and politics so that you don't have to. We do that show twice a week, Wednesdays and Saturdays at 8 p.m. Eastern time on the MeidasTouch network. And then we do a replay of it without commercials on the Legal AF Substack, where you want to be. Help us continue to grow this Legal AF community. We're top 20 or so in YouTube rankings for YouTube podcasts, top 50 usually in the audio side. We could use help in both. The bigger we are, the more your voice is going to be heard. Your First Amendment right to get commentary like ours to you. Our First Amendment right to tell you about it. This whole thing, this whole Legal AF thing is fueled by your commitment to what we do. Become a member of the Legal AF YouTube, subscribe. Legal AF Substack, subscribe. That's what keeps us on the air. So until my next report, I'm Michael Popak. Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.